Hi, welcome to On Point. I'm Robin Rhys. For soldiers and military personnel with post-traumatic stress disorder, escaping the wars they have left behind can be a continuing battle. Traumatic nightmares, seizures, strange voices, these are only a few symptoms of PTSD. A recent study shows 1 in 5 soldiers returning from Iraq and Afghanistan has tried to seek help for PTSD, but treating the increasing number of patients is not an easy task for the Veterans Administration. And many say the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan are unlike the wars we have fought in the past. We don't always know who the enemy is, and the Americans fighting these wars often have to serve more tours than they originally signed up for. Today we are going to talk with a veteran who served tours in both Afghanistan and Iraq, and who has been diagnosed with PTSD. Here with me today is Specialist David Rhys, who served several tours, like I said, spanning over a year. He was in the infantry in Iraq and Afghanistan. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
Now, the definition for PTSD, which I obtained from the Department of Veterans Affairs, says that PTSD is an anxiety disorder that can occur after going through a traumatic event in which you feel that your life or other lives are in danger. You may feel afraid or feel that you have no control over what's happening, and this is definitely the case in combat situations. Now, it's not news that there are highly increased numbers of those serving in Iraq and Afghanistan who are coming back with PTSD. In fact, the numbers are exceeding those that we've seen in previous wars. Why is this war different?
The biggest difference is, like you said, we don't know who we're fighting sometimes. It could be easily a small child to an elderly woman. It's just kind of, not knowing who you're fighting is what makes it different.
Now, when we talked before, you mentioned that this was like a hidden war. Can you kind of explain why you consider this war to be hidden?
I see that a lot of the media coverage seems to cover most of the negativity, and never or rarely any of the positive things. For example, my unit, when we were there, we renewed a hospital, opened up schools, books, all kinds of school supplies for the children, and things like that aren't as covered as the amount of people getting killed, the soldiers that are dying there. That's just kind of what they seem to be covering more than anything else.
Do you also find that there's, an overall lack of coverage?
For the most part, it seems that only specific areas are covered, and those just happen to be the areas with the more negative things going on.
Now, what was it like when you were first deployed?
Scary. It was probably one of the scariest things I've ever done. Just crossing the border was probably the scariest part from going in from Kuwait into Iraq. But it was definitely a fear of the unknown, not knowing what would happen. And that's the scariest part of.
Did you have a picture in your head of kind of what it would be like, and did it match up? Was it anything like what you were expecting?
No. I expected it to be a little bit more desolate and not as, as it is here, suburban, and, there's stores and houses and just, there's lots of things there. There's palm trees everywhere in Iraq. It's a nice place. It's actually a really nice city when you take a good look at it. But, it's definitely.
What was a typical day like for you?
Typical day, we'd get up in the morning. We'd know probably a couple days prior if we had a mission that day or not, and just kind of be prepared for it, and just kind of relax a little bit and just be prepared for a mission, clean weapons, things like that.
Can you give me an example of a mission?
Most of the missions were for counter IED missions, roadside bombs, things like that. A lot of the other ones we did were convoys, just escorting supplies in and out. And, on the rare occasion, escorting, one of the higher officers to meet one of the, the Shiites or the sheiks. and just the elders of the communities around us.
Now, going out on these missions, was that always like the scariest part of it? Because you don't really know, like, because before when we talked, you had mentioned that, people are actually paid to blow up U.S. troops.
Yes.
So was that always in your head when you were out on these missions?
Yeah, it was pretty much just a part of the daily life there, and just kind of not letting your guard down, and not being complacent. It's kind of what they, teach you to keep you on your toes and try to keep things from happening.
Now, going back to the definition of PTSD, where it said that you may think that your life or other lives are in danger, and you don't really feel like you have control over what's happening. Is that kind of what it was like?
At sometimes, waking up at night, when you're getting mortared, kind of changes the perspective on things, and that's one of the things that probably occurred that made the PTSD.
Now, when we had talked before, you mentioned that you were in one of the only units that actually had a covered building to sleep in. You mentioned that you would wake up being mortared. Did that make you feel more comfortable to actually have some sort of shelter, whereas the units next to you were just intense?
It did provide some sort of comfort, but when it comes down to it, there's, they're gonna shoot as much as they want, and sometimes you just can't do anything about it, especially in the middle of the night.
Right. So, you had mentioned a situation. Can you give us an example of a situation when you actually were attacked?
There was numerous nights where we would just wake up in the middle of the night and mortars would be falling just around the building and just blowing up, and we'd, get up and put our helmets on and put our, flak vests on and just kind of, stay under cover and wait till it stops and, go outside, check the vehicles, equipment, and, just kind of go about the day. And, they'd have special units, go out and, observe in the areas where they know that the fire was coming from. And, just kind of go about your day. It's kind of just something that happened.
Now, last time when we talked, you mentioned that there was an incident where the surrounding units that were in the tents got attacked, and so your whole unit had to go down and kind of rescue them and get them out of the tents. Can you kind of explain what that was like and the part that you played?
We had been mortared on our base, and basically what happened was a lot of people were getting injured, losing the tents, that the other units were staying in, and just losing equipment, and rounds were going off everywhere from things burning. And we kind of went down there and provided medical assistance, helping people get on the choppers and get them out of there and get medevaced. And it was pretty good. We got down there fast and saved some lives.
Where were you stationed? I know you were stationed in a couple different places. Where did you start out?
I was in Fort Benning in Georgia. I went for basic training. Then I went to Fort Drum, New York. I was in the 10th Mountain Division there. And then, I got deployed from there to Iraq with the same 10th Mountain. And then, we came back, and the company changed. And, that's kind of when I started going through my process of getting out of the military and all that.
How many tours did you actually end up serving?
They count them as 6 month. The tours are counted as 6-month tours, so 2 6-month tours.
Is that normal, or is that longer than you had expected?
We were told 6 months in the beginning, that we were going to be there for 6 months, and coming closer down the line, we were told we were going to be staying another 6 months.